So today I'm going to look at one of the older and seems pretty rare games out there. It's Second Empire, the game of Star Warfare and Conquest by Dimension 6. And it's hard to know what to do with these big flat boxes, which this one is, as far as storing it. From my understanding, they had two different games out there. One is Second Empire, then they also have Direct Conflict in Dimension 6, Galactic Warfare in 2 dimensions. A lot of dimensions in there, trying to figure out what they mean by 2 dimensions, but we'll look at that one another time. As I said, the box is big. It's like 14 by 22 inches or so, inch and a half thick. The artwork is by Michael Carroll. He's well renowned. Many awards. Obviously excellent work. These unique ships. Looks like their propulsion here. And the overview of the background of the game is here. It's been over 20 centuries since the collapse of the First Galactic Empire. Before its demise, it had been the cultural and technological center of the known universe. But a brutal war with another, equally powerful civilization, which had challenged the Empire's rights to colonize outside its own galaxy. The war was so devastating that no victor was ever determined. Both powers fell to ruin, and the war was permanently halted, leaving the separate star systems of the Empire in a state of near barbarism. War has been absent from the galaxy since the collapse of the Empire, but each of the 4 dominant powers will try to resume control and set up a new empire of their own. You, the player, as commander of the forces in your sector, must reach out, expand your dominion and technology, build bigger and better ships, and crush your opposition to become the ruler of the Second Empire. Here's all the contents. Rulebook, 6 pages. It's written in a narrative style, so when I go through, I'll demonstrate the rules by play. This advertisement referencing posters by Michael Carroll. I'll definitely have to look for those on eBay. Got these reference sheets of merchant ships, cargo log, ship's roster, turn sequence reference. And these are the different sectors with the star systems within them. First class fighting, combat matrix, piracy matrix, materials. Comes with a couple decks of cards. The white ones are the technology cards. They're one-sided. And the unique cards are Warp 1, Warp 2, Warp 3, Diagonal, Power 1, Power 2, and some are blank. And the Sector 5 technology cards. These are only used for Sector 5 stars. And these have greater potential for advancement. And these ones, the unique ones, are Power 1, Power 2, Power 1, Warp 1, Diagonal, Warp 2, and Warp 3. Then a couple of 6-sided dice. The game is for 2 to 4 players. So there's unique cards for each of the up to 4 players. And these are the counter sheets here. They're all die cut, of course. They're a little bit smaller than your standard 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. They're about 3/8 inch by 3/8 inch. And they're all the same. I'm not sure why there's 2 for the blue. And the different types are, in each one it indicates, the type of vessel and then just the number of it. So we have starships. Total of 20 starships per player. Then you have light cruisers. It's a total of 26 light cruisers per player. And then merchant ships. 16 merchant ships per player. Outpost marker are the blank pieces. Batted markers, and then incapacitated markers, and they're one-sided. A pad of ship rosters, again one-sided. Player uses it to record information about respective ships and record the amount and type of material carried by the merchant ships and on his home star. There's also a reference for the turn sequence, building charts, and conversion charts. Each ship counter has the type of ship it is and identification number. So once built, each ship is placed on the home base and logged on the ship's roster. On the sheet, in the ship's roster, you indicate the number of the ship and then their movement and power, and then you update that as you get new technologies. Starships are the primary fighting vessels. They begin with a value of 5 for power and 5 for warp. And then they're advanced according to the conversion table here. You advance 2 strength points for each P, 2 movement points with 3rd and 5th W, begin at 5.5, maximum 17.9. Light cruisers are faster than starships with longer ranges. They explore new stars, raiding and pirating, and getting new technology back to the home base fast. They begin with a 3.7, which is 3 power and 7 warp, and advance to a maximum of 7.19. In conversion chart, you advance 2 movement points for each W, you advance 2 strength points, which I assume strength is synonymous with power. Advance 2 strength points with 3rd and 5th P. Then merchant ships. Gather materials and friendly stars and return the materials to the home base. They may also carry technology cards back to the home base. They begin with a value of 1.4, 1 power 4 warp. Advance to a maximum of 3.6. In their conversion, they advance 2 strength or power with 3rd P, 2 movement with a 3rd W. There's a star materials roster and the combat resolution charts. Come in a pad, one-sided. It lists all the stars labeled on the board by their respective sectors. The sectors are Sirius, Canopus, Alpha Centauri, and Arcturus. And it's used for recording the materials chosen for the specific stars. And then you have combat resolution charts for first class fighting, piracy, and materials. And of course the A and B incapacitated markers are indicated to indicate if the counters are batted or incapacitated. It's a very large map, about 27 by 43, which I guess is a reason why the box is so big. It's it's on a cardboard, kind of medium thickness, and it kind of folds on these partially connected sections here. It's got 5 sectors, these 4 and then sector 5, which is here. It'd be nice if they didn't have these, if it was more rigid as far as the foldings here, but it is what it is. The actual presentation is pretty good. I kind of like that, you have your kind of white on bluish gray here, which I think works fine. And the sectors are Arcturus, Sirius, Alpha Centauri, Canopus, and then the 5th sector is shown here. Stars within the sector, and obviously divided into squares for movement. And these clouded areas are large clusters of stars in the nebula clouds, and there are hazards navigation. Movement is restricted to 1 square per turn in the nebula squares. All ships except for merchants lose 4 power points and 4 movement points upon entering the clusters. Ships which lose values in these nebulas must return to their home bases 10 square range in order to regain their losses. The turn sequence is outlined here, which each of the players goes through the sequence. Draw new cards, establish new outposts, movement, including outpost defensive firing, combat, loading or unloading materials, and then building, conversion, and communications. Winning conditions: a player is eliminated from the game when he has less than 6 installations, including or not his home base and outposts. The game will end when all but one player see their eventual defeat and surrender, or when one player eliminates all of his opponents. Game time: so it can last from 4 to 8 hours. Then I'll demonstrate the rules by getting into play here. First off, getting set up here, I'm going to do 2 players. So I'll have the green versus the blue. And the players decide which sector they're going to have. Green will have the Sirius sector. Blue will have Arcturus sector. Then you choose your home base, and it'll be, Sirius star system here, and the Arcturus star system here. And then on each of the home worlds, you get 50 of each of the materials. And the materials used for either the merchants or in the planets are aluminum, dilithium, iron, and plastic. And each player can, and I'm just going to show both the players on the same sheet here. I think it works out okay to have the planets on this ship's cargo log too, and that's all I'll do, since you can show the materials. Each player then gets 50 of each material on their home planet, and from that 50 of each material they can build as many ships as they want up to those amounts of materials. And the building chart is here. Starships require 3 aluminum, 3 dilithium, 2 iron, and 1 plastic. Like cruisers require 2 aluminum, 2 dilithium, 1 iron, 1 plastic. Merchant ships, 1 aluminum, 1 dilithium, 2 iron, 1 plastic. So for each of them, I'm going to I'll do 2 starships, 4 light cruisers, and 4 merchants. And I'm just I'm going to do that for both of them. And that brings after you take out those materials, you're down to 32 aluminum, 32 dilithium, 34 iron, and 40 plastics. You update the resources in the homeworld. All of these will be on the Sirius square. And for the blue, it'll be on Arcturus, starting out. Then you fill out the sheet for information. All the merchant ships start with 1 power and 4 warp, which I've marked here. All light cruisers start with 3 power and 7 warp. All starships start with 5 power and 5 warp. And I don't have anything loaded up on the merchant ships yet. And Monsieur goes first. Green will go first. In the normal turn sequence, once you get to a new star, or I guess it's actually star systems because it's the planets you're going on. So when you get to a new star system, you draw a technology card for that star system. Then you also figure out what resources it has. Then you put your outpost on the planet if it's unclaimed. Then do movement, combat, loading or unloading materials, and then building. And since I'm just on the home star right now, I'm not drawing any cards or establishing outposts, so I'll go to movement. And you go either up and down or side to side unless you have diagonal. And then you can do a diagonal, but I don't have that yet. And unless you're going into a nebula, you can move up to what your warp number is. For the merchant ships, it's 4. For light cruisers it's 7, and for starships it's 5, so I'll move them all out from the home base here. I'll move a light cruiser down here to Akinar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can't quite make it there. Move this merchant ship to the same star. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll move the starship up towards the enemy sector. They can move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'll move the others. Then I finish the movement, kind of dispersing items out here. Generally having the starships going up towards the sector boundary. Then having some light cruisers with merchant ships. And then there's the combat. And if they're next to an enemy ship, there'd be combat. Or if they're within 5 of an enemy outpost, there'd be combat. But that's not the case. There's no combat. Loading or unloading materials. None of that going on yet. Building, conversion, and communication. Conversion is upgrading with technology. Communication is sending information about technology, and none of that's happening yet. Building. You build on your homeworld, and there's no stacking limit. There's no stacking limit on the homeworld or stars, but there's a stacking limit of 10 in the space that's not a star. He's going to build 4 more starships that'll all go in the homeworld. And then you indicate that here by placing them on with their starting technology. Then you take off the build amounts from the homeworld. So it's got 4 starships, so you subtract 12 aluminum, 12 dilithium, 8 iron, and 4 plastic, so I'll take that off there. That's the end of green's turn. Then we go to blue. Did blue's movement off his homeworld of Arcturus. They're all moving this way towards the border. Some of these might go to this side of the nebula cloud, seems like a good idea. Others are heading this way. They all want their maximum movement amount. Combat, no combat yet. No loading or unloading. No conversion or communications, but building. They're going to build 6 light cruisers. Then I updated the resources on their homeworld after deducting what they needed to build the ships. Added 6 more light cruisers here at that starting technology level. And now they're all in the homeworld. Then go back to green. They don't get any technology cards yet because they weren't on a new star last time. And they don't establish any new outposts because they weren't on a star last time. So they go to movement. This light cruiser will go to Akinar. See if this one can make it to Aldebaran. Not quite. You'll move up to Destruction. Then we'll move the others. Moved out those ships. These new starships that I built on the homeworld will move up towards the enemy boundary. And move the 4 starships he built on his homeworld out towards the border. There's no combat. That's the end of movement. Then no combat, no loading and unloading, no communications or conversion. Then building. He's going to build 4 more starships. Put them on the homeworld. Indicate them on the sheet with their power and warp. Deduct the resources from the homeworld, and now he's down to 8 aluminum, 8 dilithium, 18 iron, and 32 plastic. Then we'll go to blue. We'll continue flying down here to the sector border. Can't quite make it there. He's able to make it to that star. These will head over behind the nebula here. You can only move one square if you're in the nebula, but you have a better defensive capability, but you get downgraded once you go in there as far as your abilities. March up, fly up. These light cruisers will head off the homeworld and go towards the sector boundary. That completes their movement. And then no combat or loading and unloading or conversion or communication. Then he'll build 2 more starships in his homeworld, put them there, and then mark off the resources from their homeworld. And then we'll go back to green. Now to green's turn. In the last turn they had a ship, a light cruiser on Akinar, and since he was their last turn, he gets to draw a technology card for that system. It's a power 2. And then you indicate that on the light cruiser. So it's light cruiser number 4. You'll have +2 on power. And that'll take effect on his ship now. And when he gets back to his home base, they can communicate that to ships within, I believe, 10 squares, and they can be upgraded as well. Squeeze that. And then you roll to see what materials that system produces. Go to this chart, roll 2 die. 6, 6. It's pretty lucky. High roll anyway. It's got 2 dilithium and 2 iron. We'll indicate that here. On Akinar, and then you put an outpost there. Places an outpost there, which is a fortification that has a strength of 10 for 5 squares. Then we'll proceed to movement. This light cruiser will make it to Aldebaran. He'll move off here. See if the merchant can make it there. Not quite. Merchant will head over here. Can't quite make it there. This light cruiser will go to BD 1668. He'll make it there. The rest will proceed up this direction. They finish their movement. There's no loading or unloading of merchant ships because there's no merchant ships on the settled planets yet. No combat. No conversion or communications. Once they get to the home planet with the new technology, he'll be able to communicate that, but he can't do that yet. So no conversion either. Building, he's not going to build any this turn because he's a little bit low on resources for aluminum and dilithium. So then we'll go to blue. He had a ship on Gamma Crucis last time, so he gets a technology card. Warp 3, which is pretty handy. Puts that on his ship. So we can move 10 squares now. See what materials that planet produces. 1 iron and 2 plastics. We'll indicate that. Put an outpost there. We'll do movement. He's going to keep working towards the boundary here. Although he's going to send this light cruiser back to home base so that their ships can upgrade to the technology. So these others will move forward. Let's see if he can make it over to this system. Not quite. He made it to this system. A merchant will head over here. Merchant will head over here. The rest will move up towards the boundary. That's the completion of their movement. There's no communication or conversions. He's not going to do any building either because he's a little bit low on resources on his home planet. Then we'll go to the next turn. One of his light cruisers, LC3, was on Aldebaran last time, so he gets a technology card for that. It's diagonal, so now he can start moving diagonal on that ship. We'll indicate that in a ship, and if he brings that back to the home base, other ships within range can use that. See what materials it produces. 1-1 is 1 aluminum, 1 dilithium, and 2 iron. We'll indicate that. It's a pretty productive planet. Then put an outpost there. And then movement. This merchant's going to move to Akanar, so we can start loading up there. He'll move to Aldebaran, so he can load up. He'll head with his diagonal technology up towards the home base. Since he can go diagonal now, makes it easier. You can go 1, 2. He made it serious, and now when it comes to communication, he'll be able to communicate. He had some increased power technology that he'll communicate to others at a distance there. Actually, he had landed on a planet as well, so he'll get a card for that. Power 1. Indicate that in his. This system will produce 2-2, which is 4 plastic, so I'll indicate that. I'll place an outpost there as well. And now, since we're in the movement turn, he can move back. He can't do it diagonal yet. He doesn't have that technology, but he doesn't have increased warp either. He's got increased power. All the rest will move up towards the boundary. Getting close to the sector boundary here, you move up to Bellatrix. And move up. And they've completed their movement, getting close to the boundary of the sector there. Then we do loading and unloading. They have a couple of merchants and some systems here, M3 and M4, so they can load up. M3 is an Ultron, which produces 1 aluminum, 1 dilithium, and 2 iron, so he'll load up that. And M4 over here is on Arcanar, which produces 2 dilithium and 2 iron. So that's the loading. So now the communication phase, LC4 brought back to the home base the technology of +2 power. And any starships within a 10 square distance from the home base will get that upgrade. Which is handy because all these starships are within that range, which is very nice. So starships 7, 8, 9, and 10 all get a +2 power. That'll come in handy in combat. Merchants and light cruisers can only be upgraded if they're on the home planet, or if the ship with the technology, is on their square, but didn't happen. But that was a good bonus for those starships. And green isn't going to do any more building until some of those merchants come back with supplies to the home base. Once the merchants come back to the home base, they'll unload their supplies so they can build more ships. Then we'll go on to blue. Then I'll move ahead a couple turns here to show some combat. When the opposing forces are next to each other, combat can occur, or if they're within 5 of an outpost, it'll also occur. Right now they're next to each other, but they're like 6 or 7 beyond the outpost, so the outpost won't contribute. There's 2 types. There's first class fighting, which is ship to ship, but then there's also piracy, where a light cruiser can try to take a pirate action against a merchant. But they're not going to be doing that. It'll just be ship to ship. First you look at the attack factors on both groups of ships and compare them. You have Starship 1 and 2 for green versus Light Cruiser 4 and 5 and Starship 1 for blue. For green, Starship 1 and 2 have a power of 5 and 5 for a total of 10. For blue, their Starship 1 has a power of 5 and their Light Cruiser 4 and 5 each have a power of 3, so a total of 11. It's approximately 1 to 1. Then we look at the first class fighting. Roll on the table here, 6-sided dice. On the 1 to 1 column, 4. So the options on this column are a DI would be a defender incapacitated, D sub B would be defender batted, A sub B would be attacker incapacitated or batted, D sub I would be the DI would be the defender incapacitated. Got a 4. Attackers incapacitated. So in this action, green was the attacker, so both of the green ships are incapacitated. You get that with markers. And all the greens are in 1 hex. All the greens are in this square and all the blues are in that square. Hopefully that gives you a sense of how the combat goes and an overall sense of how the play goes. That's Second Empire from Dimension 6 Enterprises from 1977. I didn't go into it with high expectations, but I actually enjoyed it. I don't think I'd be doing it for 4 hours like they say the duration would last. But it's got enough going. I think I don't think it has to be on this big of a scale. It's good that it has the big maps, but and I can see the way they do the movement, why it needs to be a big map. But I think it would work fine if it was like a pocket game. I could definitely see that. I like that it has you got merchant aspects. You can do piracy, regular combat. You got resource development. It's kind of a type of a 4X type game, especially given the early time this was developed. I think it's fine. It's enjoyable. I'm glad it's got kind of charts that are easy to track, and you have to think about resources and building up your transferring resources and communicating technologies and developing ships developing ships with those increased technologies, and thinking about ranges that you are from base as far as communicating upgrades. So there's some good strategic elements to it. Definitely glad I have a copy. It's pretty hard to find out there. It's limited in terms of the components, but factoring in when it was developed, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Thanks a lot.